Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a little bit of a different episode that I'm going to do here. So, this isn't a guest episode, and I wasn't a guest on a podcast. It was actually a coaching call between a client of mine, and he's a coach himself. And so, he wanted to talk body composition stuff. I kind of helped him work through a client case study in terms of how I would approach it and to give him some thoughts on long-term periodization, what that looks like. And I think this was useful because it really shows how to think about this on a actual practical level, right? Not just, hey, here's what I think and what things look like, but actually how does this work in practice, right? We talked about transitioning one of his clients from weight loss to muscle building, how body fat percentage drives the calorie increase strategy, rate of loss determines the deficit sustainability, maintenance phase duration and how that depends on individual factors. This specific client lost 10 kg over 6 months. And so what to do in that situation, what calorie targets and macro distribution for the building phase should look like, and my thoughts around that, what training should be look like and what cardio looks like, managing weight gain expectations during the building phase, and then post maintenance evaluation and what the transition looks like. And then I just talked about some body comp principles and avoiding the bulk and cut cycles there. Then we also talk about maximum duration of fat loss phases and monitoring and what we need to do there. We troubleshoot why some clients feel hungry but aren't losing weight as well too there, right? So some things to look into. So really dove into a lot of body composition stuff. And again, things that I would take into consideration for clients. So I think it can be very practical for you guys to just see how that looks and how I think about these things, again, in actual practice. And so this is with my mentor client, Bruno. He is based out in Belgium. Great coach. So definitely give him a follow on Instagram. His Instagram handle is, give me 1 second here. Let me pull up his Instagram. Should have done this before. Araujo Silva, Silva 85. So Bruno Araujo here. So definitely give him a follow as well too. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. If you are interested in any sort of coaching or working with me, you can check out the link in the show notes. Reach out to me on Instagram, Jeff, HOEHN_, or fill out the strategy call link in the show notes on there. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. Talk to you soon. All righty.
It's just
How you
so that
doing?
my cold it's getting cold here again. Yeah, good. This springtime in Brussels is very weird because it's very cold in the morning, and then all of a sudden it gets super warm in the afternoon, and then after six gets super cold again.
Up and down.
Yeah, that's it. So that's typical spring in Belgium. But there's sun, there is no raining, so at least you
It
can see
looks
spring.
sunny.
Yeah, it is
Staying
pretty
lighter
good.
out longer. All wins.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool,
And you,
man.
how's everything?
Good.
Good?
Everything's good. Weather's good. It's a little chilly too here today, but feels
Mhm.
pretty good. So I'll take it. Yeah, 60 degrees. So you guys do Celsius?
Here we are about 20, 21. Okay, but now,
We're 16 right
yeah,
now.
16 degrees like Celsius.
Celsius, yep.
That's cold for spring, no?
Yeah, it's on the chillier side, yeah, for sure. It's usually a little bit warmer, but sometimes these days feel
Yeah,
pretty good. I like 60. I think it's nice and it's like nice and chill. So cool, man. Well,
cool.
let's chat muscle building, body comp stuff. What specific questions do you have for me? Do you have anything specific that you want to go over? Just let me know. I can
Yes,
talk hours about this stuff. So
I know you are the man for that, so I'm in the good hands. Yeah, and so as I've been joining OTM for a while, and most of my clients at the beginning when they join me, of course, they want to mainly lose weight. I think in that sense, I did mostly do a good job in terms of how to make them lose weight. Of course, keeping the most possible the muscular mass or even increasing the muscular mass. But then I'm starting to have a few clients that they lost a good amount of weight, and now it's time to build it up in terms of muscle mass, just to improve the body composition in terms of muscle
yeah,
mass phase. And this, I don't think I'm 100% sure about it. I know how to, in terms of training, how we can do, what you should do in terms of to achieve your muscles and everything. But I think when it comes to nutrition, I'm not sure how much we should adjust in terms of calories, the macros, and things like that. So if you can give me an idea, then I
yeah.
can give an example for a client which I'm working right now. I can give you your some photo progress as well, so we can maybe help me
Yeah.
how we can navigate on that.
Well,
Yeah.
let me kind of give you my overarching thoughts on this, and then we can go. I'll go big picture, and then we can talk like specific of a specific client in terms of what that looked like. Again, let's take in this in context of, hey, you've had a client that is losing weight. They're at this point now where it's like, all right, can you lose any more weight? Is that going to be beneficial? They need to build muscle. So it's like, where do you go from that standpoint? So what I do in this situation is off the bat, again, you may not have this right away. You probably, depending on where they're at specifically, you probably want to get them close to their maintenance-ish calories. So that would be like the first thing I would look at is, okay, where are they at from a calorie standpoint? How many are they eating? What does that look like? But really what you want to get is you want to get them eating enough to be back to close to their maintenance. And when you do that, you may see their scale weight come up a little bit in that process. And that's where a lot of people will end up pulling back and then going back to lower calories, and then they stay there, right? And it's like they don't feel their greatest. They're not really seeing any more weight loss. They're not in a great spot to build muscle. And so that's where you just need to work through that. And I usually like to increase calories on the lower end with people. Some people will be like, no, you need to increase them back to their maintenance, or you need to go a little bit quicker. Most people we're working with, they're not like super shredded bodybuilders. And this is where I think body composition matters. So the leaner someone is, so men, you work with mostly men, right? Like you don't really have any women. Okay. So men, we're talking if they're under 8 to 10, low 10 body fat percentage, it's okay if they see their scale weight. That would be someone I'd be a bit more aggressive on getting their calories up a little bit higher. But someone that's a little bit higher body fat percentage, say closer to 12, 15 or higher, like they could maybe lose a little bit more weight or a little bit more body fat. That's a person that I'm going to be very slow with their calories on the way up. Reason being is body fat percentage can be a big stressor on the body for people, right? So the lower the body fat percentage is, the more stress it's going to be on the person, and they're just going to be in a worse position to build muscle. Whereas people that are a little bit higher body fat percentage, when they end, you can be closer to maintenance and they have plenty of stored energy to be able to build muscle in that state. So you need to look at overall body fat percentage, like how lean they are. You don't need to look at absolute numbers. I'm not going off of an in-body scan or anything like that. I'm just looking at the person. What does the person look like? You can tell if somebody's super lean or if they're lean, but maybe they're not like super shredded, like bodybuilder style shredded, right? So that's ultimately going to depend on how aggressive you would be on the way back up with calories, is where they're at from a body fat percentage standpoint. Because again, someone that's leaner is going to have a tougher time building muscle. And just from a physiological standpoint, they may have more, the longer they stay in that lower energy state, they may just have a little bit more issues from like a testosterone perspective, thyroid perspective, some of those like biofeedback things that you'll see, libido. That's why I'm always asking these people that are in these leaner states and transitioning out or deep into a deficit, how do those things feel? What's your libido? What are your energy levels? For men, you could ask, I don't know how much you guys dive into this, but again, around testosterone, or even like sometimes morning erections are something that you could potentially hint at with that as well too. Those are signs that things are off from that perspective, and they're not going to be in a good position to build muscle in that state. So I've thrown a lot out at you to start. Do you have any follow-ups on that first or anything?
Yeah, in fact, so I don't know how much you, terms of of course, when you're losing weight, it should be in a caloric deficit process, right? I don't know how much is the best for you, how long is the best for you to continue in the caloric deficit, or if it's important to just take a break, like for a couple of weeks and then come back again to the caloric deficit again, or we should just stop the caloric deficit, do the maintenance for a while, and then afterwards, like this, do this kind of bulking and cutting phase.
No, that's a good question.
How do you navigate?
Yep. Obviously, if you're losing weight, you're in a deficit, right? So the person is in a deficit. And how long can you stay there? You need to look at a couple things. You need to look at rate of loss. So how quickly are they losing weight? And this is where you can look at their average weight loss, because that's going to be huge. The quicker the rate of loss is, the more likely they're going to start to run into some issues of hunger, all the things that come along with fat loss dieting, right? So rate of loss being their percent of their body fat or of their body weight per week, right? So if someone's 170 pounds, or I'll do kilograms here for you, because so I'm going to start at 170 pounds and I'll go to kilograms. Sorry. So someone's 65 kg, I'm going to go back. I know I keep going back and forth here on this. So if we're looking at, let's say you have a 65 kilogram person, right? Around 1% of weight loss per week is probably on the top end that people are going to be able to sustain, and that people are going to be able to not see like a ton of benefit, or they're going to start to run into some issues if they go higher than that, right? So for a 65 kilogram person, that's 0.65 kilograms, right? So looking at their average weight loss over weeks is going to be important, right? That's going to be one thing that's going to determine how long they can stay in that. That's the first thing I would be looking at. The quicker it is, the higher that rate of loss is, they're probably not going to be able to sustain that for as much. And that's where you would probably need to implement more days at maintenance calories, or potentially implementing a diet break at a couple weeks. Now, the other main player here is going to be their body fat percentage. So the lower that is, the quicker they're going to run into issues. So you need to watch those things. That's where they'll start to run into thyroid issues, testosterone issues, just general adherence. They're going to get hungrier. It's going to be harder to stay on track there. But then also, how long have they been doing this for? Okay, that's the other thing I'm considering. How long have they been losing that? Because that's super important. And then from there, you just need to go off of their biofeedback, asking them those things. Again, energy levels, hunger, training performance, libido. Those would be things.
Yeah.
You're asking that because you're pairing those up together to see. So I'm taking those three things and then pairing that up, because I haven't once mentioned exact calorie amount, because at the end of the day, I'm going to give somebody a calorie amount, but I'm not ever putting full stock into what that number says. I'm basing it off of rate of loss, what is actually happening from a scale weight perspective. How lean are they? Again, just generalities here. How lean are they? How long have we been doing this? And then what is their biofeedback ultimately at the end of the day? Because again, if somebody is super low energy, hunger super high, and now they're like plateaued, then that's a little bit more of a sign that you may need to take some sort of break, whether it's a day at maintenance or extended longer break at maintenance calories potentially for that person.
Yeah. And the maintenance calories, you stay for how long? It can be 1 month, 2 months, or? Good
question. It depends. It depends on the person, right? Because you're going off of what is your body fat percentage? How long were you in a deficit? And then again, what is your biofeedback? What are those numbers saying, or what is that telling us on there? Because again, the more weight someone's lost, the leaner they get, you're probably going to have to be at maintenance a bit longer than someone that, for guys, is 20% body, went from 30% body fat to 20% body fat. Their rate of loss was a little bit slower, right? They did it over extended periods of time and their biofeedback's in a good spot. That person, maybe it's just a week or two. But again, if somebody is super low energy, libido's in the tank, their performance sucks, they were in a deficit for 6 months, it was somewhat aggressive, they're probably going to have to be at maintenance for a bit longer until biofeedback starts to improve a little bit. Does that make sense?
All right, it makes sense. So maybe I can share you a case of one client, if you don't mind. I have this client here. So we are working together since September last year. So if you can see this, with this how we started, mode.
Cool. And then show me his most recent one.
Yeah, this is how we started. Just going to zoom a little bit to have an idea. And then the most recent, it was like last week, is like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so down 10 kilograms, and what is that?
It was
a little over 6 months.
Yeah, we started back in September, so that means he lost nearly 10 kilos since September, I would say. I'm just considering because you see that he lost weight, but he's not super lean yet.
Yep. Okay, hold on. Right? Let me see here.
So
go ahead.
So I'm not sure if, because I know he's been in this weight loss process, he's been in caloric deficit since September. And he has a bit ups and downs. Of course, the beginning, his weight stopped to drop super fast, but then of course he achieved a kind of plateau. And then I realized that, okay, maybe we should stop a little bit the weight loss and just do a little bit of the muscle building process, because I don't think he's very, if you can say more from the side, he's not very, in terms of muscles, it's not very super defined yet. We can see that he basically lost weight, but the muscles, it's not much definition, the muscle is not really pumped yet. He just saw that he lost weight and that's it.
Yeah, he definitely looks like he put on some muscle for sure, but this is definitely more on, he lost some body fat. He definitely didn't lose any muscle for sure, but yeah, no, so I think this guy, again, I would come back to, okay, so he's lost 20 pounds in a little over 6 months. So that's
and also if you consider his body fat percentages, I'm not sure exactly how accurate is it, because I don't know which kind of machine he used to measure his body fat percentage, but he might be not more than 20%.
Yeah,
sure.
So that's where, like, again, this is where I'm going off of, like, just look versus exact numbers, right? Because that number is going to be so dependent on so many different things. And so you're really just going off look here, but he definitely looks like he's probably near, I would say he's closer to that around 20-ish%. Like, I don't think that number is far off. So this guy in particular, what I would do is look at his biofeedback, like how's he feeling from day to day, ask him how he's feeling, how his energy levels are, what's his training like.
Yeah. On the weekly biofeedback, I always have this question that's always good. He has good energy. He's improving a lot. His lifts, he's always lifting heavier and heavier every month, especially his big lifts. He's always going higher. He doesn't achieve any plateau in terms of training. Yeah, I think he's doing good. But I just thought he was been a long time doing the caloric deficit. So maybe I thought, okay, maybe it was a little break. But
you could pitch it that way too. Even if even if his biofeedback's fine, like you could totally pitch it that way of, hey man, we've been doing a deficit for a while. I think you're in a great spot. But typically when people start to lose about 10 to 20% of their body weight, things start to slow down from a fat loss perspective. And so I think for you, it'd be super beneficial to increase your calories just a little bit, get you close to maintenance, really focus on training performance, feeling good. And then now, you know, what's going to happen is we take that break, we work on how do we maintain this new kind of body weight, new kind of body composition for you. We take some time to really dial that in, make sure you start to feel good. We focus on those things, like kind of tell him what you're going to change in terms of what he needs to focus on. And then we come back to fat loss, and now you're going to be in a much more fresh spot. You're going to have a little bit more muscle. And now that process from going to 80 kg down to say 70 is going to be much easier. Whereas if we just keep trying to push this, we're going to feel like we're working uphill a little bit more in that process. So you can pitch him from that perspective there. Now, this is the other thing too, is what you could look at for him. Is he setting himself up for muscle building? So are there some things that he could dial in to help? Because he's still in that spot to where he could probably continue to build some muscle. And now it would just be like, can we pull that muscle building lever a little bit more to maximize where we're at from that perspective? So some things I would really look at for him if you feel like his muscle growth is slow is look at it. I don't know if you get training videos, look at his training videos. Like, again, if he's progressing, it sounds like he is based on what you said, but look at his training. Like, what does his technique look like? Is he pushing close to failure on some stuff? Look at his sleep. Is his sleep dialed in? From a calorie perspective, is he hitting his protein goal consistently? Is he hitting protein regularly, like throughout the day? Is he getting some nutrition in around his workouts? Like, those would be some things I would look into a little bit more, and he could potentially squeeze out a little bit more like muscle growth in terms of what he's already doing there, right? Without necessarily taking him out of a deficit. But in saying that, what were the things we talked about? Like, somebody being in a deficit for 6-7 months, like, again, the slower it is, the longer you can go. But no matter what, you're still going to run into some potential issues the longer you're in it. So he still could benefit from taking some time away. I always tell clients, like in this position, hey, I know you're not necessarily at your goal body composition. How I told you how to explain that to him. Okay, if we take, say, 8 to 12 weeks of doing this, is going to make it for a much more efficient process to continue to push down to say 70 kg, or again, whatever he said his kind of goal weight was in that situation.
Okay, so maybe in his case, you suggest we can keep 8 to 12 weeks like maintenance phase of calorie intake. And the maintenance phase must be how much? Because on the caloric deficit, he was around 1,800 calories, which was very low. And then now I dropped to 2,200, so something more or less than that.
For his maintenance?
For his maintenance, yeah.
So,
it's too high or too...
But he's been at 1,800, you said?
Yeah, he was definitely below 2,000. And then I just increased for 2,250.
I think around 1,900 to 2,000 would be a good number to start. Just kind of see how his body responds, because this is a guy that you can be, because he's probably closer to that 20% body fat range. You can be a little less aggressive with your calorie increases. Like, this would be the person that I would be less aggressive with. Whereas if he was 10% body fat, then that's where I'd jump in a little bit quicker. Because he just, from a physiological standpoint, he just has a lot more stress on his body. Whereas this guy probably doesn't have as much stress because it's been pretty sustainable fat loss and he still has some body fat on him. So you could be a little bit slower with that process back up on there. But at the end of the day, 2,050 versus 1,900 to 2,000, it's like, that's all within air, essentially, right? Yeah. But here's the reason I tend to be less aggressive with these people in calorie increases. Because kind of like I told you earlier, I honestly, like, whatever calorie number somebody says they eat, yeah, it's like a good baseline for us, but it doesn't mean jack shit to me, to be completely honest with you, because tracking labels are off. People are not good at tracking. All the reasons, all those things can be off. And so that's where I just come back to, what is your rate of loss? What are your results? And what's your biofeedback? Because that's going to ultimately tell me a better idea of where their calories at. Because like you mentioned there, you were like, yeah, 1,800 is really low. Is it though? Because like at the end of the day, if he saw weight loss and he wasn't saying he felt terrible, he felt good in the process, you didn't have any of those issues from a biofeedback standpoint, then that was a fine fine calorie range for him. And probably he was eating a little bit more than that at the end of the day. I can't say that for sure, but he probably was eating a little bit more. So I'm always careful with, because I used to feel that way too, when I would be like, oh, that's way too low. But it's like, for some people, if you set them higher, they're probably going to be higher. So that's their baseline. That 1,800 is their baseline. And if you were to do doubly labeled water, or like to actually figure out what they're consuming, it's probably closer to 2,000 or 2,100. Okay. Does that make sense?
So it's always better to set a lower caloric target, because they're always going to end up eating a bit more anyway in the end.
Not all the time. But
Yeah, of course, but most of the time, yeah. Because even when I track myself, I understand that I know very sure that,
yep,
okay, in the end of the day, I suppose to eat 2,000, but I know that I ate a bit more. So
yep.
anyway,
So I would say obviously know who you're working with and knowing. I guess what I would say on that is just don't be afraid of, ooh, that's too low, or and test it out, and just again
mhm,
always be like, it's probably a little bit higher than what it actually is with that, right? So just keep that in mind with that. So it doesn't mean you need to just next time this guy fat loss diet, hey, we're going to put you at 1,200, because that can't giving them a mental number that's too low can also become problematic, right? Because then somebody sees
yeah.
that and then they feel like they're really like boxed in and they don't have any flexibility. And
Mhm.
then they like, I can't hit this number, so fuck it. I'm just going to eat 4,000 calories because I can't hit that number. So you do always want to walk that fine line with that. But yeah.
Okay. Just to make sure, in terms of macros, do you think we have to adjust the terms of carbs in this maintenance level? You should just keep for instance, I will work with him like a macros,
If he's in
50% carbs.
Yep, if he's increasing, it's probably going to mostly be via carbs and fats. This is my rule on macros. My main thing that I'm
Yeah.
focused on with clients is protein and calories. Those are going to be the two most important
Yeah.
things. We want to make sure we hit those, because at the end of the day, people are probably going to be fairly close with fats and carbs if they hit calories and protein, right? And plus, we know that protein, carbs, and fats equal they equal the calories. So if calories are in check, protein's in check, carbs and fats can only go so much, right? The way people are just naturally going to eat, it's not like one, unless they just are super scared of carbs, they're going to fall within a fine range in that situation. So I'm always just focusing on those two, carbs and fats. I'm just watching. And if I see that they're completely off in terms of what they're doing, I may be like, hey, I want you to get a little bit more carbohydrates in. But still, if we have calories and protein in check, that's going to be the two most important things there, right? You still can't, it's not like you can somehow eat 3,000 carbs, 3,000 grams of carbs and keep your calories low, right? Because obviously those would be more
Mhm.
calories there, right? So focus on
Yeah.
those two things. But generally speaking, when you're going to increase calories, it's going to be through carbs and fats, unless somebody's been eating low
Yeah.
protein. And this is where you could potentially leverage protein a little bit. So see where they're at. If they've been a little low, maybe you do increase protein a little bit. So it does depend on what they've been hitting in that situation there. But you can always
Okay.
utilize
So
protein
it's
when increasing calories, because protein is one, you're going to get a nice bump in thermic effective food. So that's going to increase your total daily energy expenditure if you bump it up, and protein satiating, right? So it can help offset people from overeating calories when you increase them. So just keep that in mind. But you also need to make sure that if you increase calories, that now they're not eating so much protein that now they're not getting in enough carbs and fats either. So you still need to walk that line. So just make sure protein's in a good spot is basically what I'm getting at there. Probably going to increase via carbs and fats at that point.
okay. So I keep always protein high, and I just increase carbs and fat, basically.
Yep. And see where they're at. If somebody's been low
Okay.
carb for a while, that's probably the lever I'm going to pull. But just keep in mind, if they're I feel like a lot of people that we end up working with are very fearful of carbohydrates. And so if they've always been super low carb, again, that's where you want to slowly titrate those carbs back up, because they probably aren't as good at metabolizing carbohydrates if they've always been super low carb. And then you just
Of
slam a bunch of
course.
carbs down, right? You want to ease them back into that a little bit there.
Okay, good. And in terms of training, because this client, for instance, he was doing like a three to four trainings a week. And during this maintenance muscle building process, I just dropped for 3 sessions a week maximum. Is a good approach, or maybe he should continue for 4 times a week.
If you think, based on what we saw of him, it is still going to be a combination of some sort of body recomp where you need to add some muscle and lose some fat. I think three, again, and then my thought on this is you always need to see how much he can train. If he can do 4 days, I'm always going to advocate for 4 days of weight training if they can do it, just because you're going to be able to get a little bit more in. And that's probably going to be a good thing for muscle growth, as long as the quality is there and they can recover from it. So if he can only do 3 days, 3 days is totally fine. If he can do 4 days, I'm going to probably push for
Yeah.
4 days in a phase where we're trying to add a little bit more muscle, because I do think that the more you can do and dedicate time towards and recover from, like that's probably going to be better from a muscle growth standpoint in terms of volume.
Okay. But for instance, if it could be a good idea to do 3 times a week strength training or resistance training and give one additional extra day for cardio, or do you think it's not a idea?
Yeah. So how many days a week can he train?
Before we are doing 4. He was doing easily 4 times a week with additional even 5-ish because he likes to work. He likes to run sometimes outdoor, everything. For this new phase, I just changed for 3 times a week, mainly full body sessions, focus in the big lifts, big compound lifts, and then one extra day only for outdoor cardio he feels like.
Yeah. If he can do if he can do 4 days, I think maintaining some sort of cardiovascular stimulus or fitness is always going to be a good thing. And so it does depend on where he's at, like where his resting heart rate's at too. If that's a bit higher, he probably does need to keep some cardio conditioning in. Biggest thing is you just want to make sure that he's doing it in a way that's not just adding fatigue. And what I mean by that is when he goes out on his runs, he's not just trying to burn the most calories. So I do, especially for men, I like to advocate for some cardiovascular fitness for sure. But if he can only give you 4 days, I would still push towards, and again, based on where he's at, and so long as his resting heart rate's not super high, I would probably do something where could I squeeze in 4 workouts and fit some cardio in on some of those days potentially, if it's only 4 days. If he can give you 5 days, then I think 4 days of weight training and 1 day of cardio would be like perfect for this guy. And then maybe throw in a little bit of cardio on his weight training days if he needs it. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to if you feel like he needs some. And again, we're looking at resting heart rate.
I think he needs, because he's spending his whole time sitting in the desk. He's working his off season and doesn't move much during the day. And just thought for me the cardio would be a good idea for him to move his body itself. Also because he enjoys to go out and to do outdoor running as well.
What you can do with this guy then is have him do 1 to 2 sessions a week where he's pushing cardio, like a cardio stimulus. Again, you could do 1 day where he goes out for a run, and then maybe 1 day he does 10, 20 minutes, maybe interval style, where again, he's not just going and trying to burn the most calories, but it's like he's focused on output and improving his cardiovascular fitness, right? Like watching fatigue, etc. Rest of the time, have him move, have him get steps the rest of the time as like the rest of his cardio to get some movement in. Because that's a low fatigue thing. And if you say he's sitting a lot, that could be a low hanging fruit thing to make sure he's getting some movement in and stuff like that.
No, his steps quite fine. He quite move his life. For sure, he's always go to the gym, walking. So I can say he's always beyond the 10K steps a week, which is fine. I just think that he doesn't have much time to go to do his training itself. So I think if I add one cardio in the end of his training session, maybe his session is going to take too long and he'll not be going to be able to conclude everything. So perhaps that's why the reason why I put it to the one extra cardio that we're going to do mainly only that cardio and it's mostly going to be an outdoor session.
So a couple things I do to get some cardio in for clients if they can't, if it's like you start coming down to time constraints, is you could throw in some micro kind of stimulus there where it's not necessarily like a 30-minute workout or hour workout. It's, hey, you're maybe doing a couple intervals after a weight training session. You're doing called a progressive 6 where you warm up, like you do like a 6-minute where it's 2 minutes, you warm up, 2 minutes, intensity is a little bit higher than like 2 minutes of a higher intensity, like 8 or 9 RPE, right? They could do that on a rower, a salt bike, whatever it is. You throw that a couple times in a week. Now they're starting to build up some cardio stimulus there.
Yeah.
But again, you're also taking into consideration, what is this guy's, does he need more cardio or does he need more weight training? And then that obviously becomes a thing that we focus on and prioritize most of the time. And then we fit the one in there with when we can.
My opinion, for sure, he needs much more strength training. Because his main goal is just to building muscle. And of course, we know very well, we're never going to be able to build muscles doing cardio. Yeah, that's definitely the priority for him. But I know that he enjoys to do cardio, and I think it's beneficial for him to still doing cardio because it will also increase his steps overall. So that's why I put eventually 3 training sessions a week plus one cardio in a weekend that he feels like for running, something like that. But I will include also some heat on the end of this session, like a short training, like sprint and try something like this. At the end of the sessions,
and keep it focused on what's his output. Like really try to push him to focus on his output versus how many calories he's burning or how high his heart rate is, right? Tell him it's not to go all out. It's, hey, we're trying to build your cardiovascular fitness. And so just always let them know, explain that to them and stuff like that. So
yeah, he's not very focused on that sense for sure. I just think that cardio for him is something that he likes for fun because he can go outdoor. He doesn't have to get out of the house. So I think it's for him that in terms of mental health aspect is also beneficial for him as well. So.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think every guy should be doing some cardiovascular fitness for sure. But if his main goal is building muscle, that obviously is the priority of, like you said, the strength training, the weight training is the priority. So you want to build your week around that of, hey, if that is his main goal right now, then to me, my programming is like, all right, let's get 4 days of weight training in. And then from there, I'm going to fit cardio in based on time availability and what we can fit in from that point. But saying that, he can still make good gains on 3 days a week too. I think that's where his time constraint is the biggest thing that you need to look at there.
And when do you see this as a reference that for sure he's gaining weight too fast in terms of if I see, for instance, if I notice that he's gaining too much fat, too fast compared with muscle mass, what should I do? Should I decrease his calorie intake immediately, or should I give it his time? Or
Obviously,
What do you think would be the best approach?
obviously the first couple weeks is going to be a challenge because there's going to be some water weight noise going on. So just one, explaining that to
Yeah.
him, and then just understanding that anything in the first couple weeks, you just need to let things stabilize a little bit. So I always, we need to differentiate between that first, right? What happens in the first couple weeks is just all water weight. And so
Yeah.
outside of that, if it's 2 to 3 weeks in and you're still seeing weight come up and it just doesn't make sense and it's a consistent trend up, again, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Again, this is where we come back to, I'm looking at the rate of gain. If the rate of gain is more than, say, 0.25% per week or so, you can probably start to assume that there's a little bit more fat gain going on in that process. And so there's a couple different ways that you can handle this. It's first, ask them about adherence. Are you doing things differently? Are you eating different foods? Are you going out to eat a little bit more? Like, confirm that's not the case, right? See, because that could be the thing, right? People get more calories to work with. Oh, hey, I'm not in fat loss. So then what do? They're just like, screw it. Now I can go have pizza. I can do it. And then those are the things that are the problem, not the calories that you said. It's those things that start to add up. So definitely double check on those things for sure. Like, really hone in on those things and see if they can improve on those. So double check that. If it's still coming up, it could be a calorie thing, but it's probably going to be more so the adherence that they really need to get dialed in from that perspective. Also look at their body composition, because sometimes for some people, their body gets in a better position where it's like, okay, holy crap, we've been in this calorie restricted state for so long. Now we're getting enough fuel in, and their body is now primed for some muscle growth. And so you have to differentiate between that there. But I also always tell people too, just because you're gaining a little bit of weight, this doesn't mean that you're going backwards. Like, always try to reframe it of, hey, let's go back to what the goal of this phase is. We're trying to get you out of a deficit for a little bit because of all the reasons, all the things that happen. We need to make sure we're fueling enough to have enough energy to build some muscle. And your body is just you're fueling your body enough, and this is going to help fat loss in the future. Always reframing it as that, and then always hit on their inputs. If they're eating enough protein and they're weight training, that weight coming back up is going to look a lot different than that weight did on the way back down to where they were at before. Because again, if they're weight training, you are still building some muscle in that process there. Right.
Sure.
But in saying this too, again, you may find that in the beginning, people are a little bit more prone to weight gain. And I think part of that comes down to, depending on how much diet fatigue. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I just froze, but I can still hear. Yeah.
Okay. Depending on how much diet fatigue somebody has.
I'm back.
Yep. That period of time post fat loss is going to be somewhat challenging. They're going to be hungrier. Their body's probably everything's going to taste better. So that's where you really set up the expectations of, hey, keep protein high, keep staying active, still make good choices, add in some flexibility, but we still want to make good food choices. Because again, you're probably going to find that in the beginning, people's weight is going to be a little bit more up and down, and you may find it trend up a little bit at the bottom end of where they're at, if that makes sense. But once they start getting a little bit higher, it's going to be, if they're doing all these habits, still eating well, et cetera, it's going to be hard for them to continue to climb up. Like, eventually that's going to start to plateau a little bit if you get all these things dialed in. So again, just keep that in mind. It's not just because the weight trend is this in the beginning, it doesn't necessarily mean it's always that trend's going to continue. It's usually this, and then it kind of flatlines. You know what I'm saying?
Of course. Sure. The progress is never a linear progress. So it's like up and down, and even
up and down. And then eventually the body's going to be like, okay, cool. We got more fuel now. This is fine. It's easier to regulate on those things from there.
Okay. So you should have to consider for the first weeks, it's going to be definitely a water retention.
Potentially. I've also seen this happen too, man, where you increase somebody's calories and they've had a lot of stress on their body from fat loss dieting for a while, and you increase calories and their body was adapting a little bit more in terms of like needs. Some of the regular functions of the body were turned down as they were in that deficit. They've been in it for a while. And then you feed them more calories, and now their body's like, okay, cool. We got more calories coming in. And so then NEAT ramps up a little bit. And so sometimes you'll see some people, and it takes stress off the body. And so some people, you'll see the weight come down. Like, some people's weight will come down because they have stress. So you just have to watch, like, that first couple of weeks, man, is just a crapshoot in terms of what's going to happen with scale weight.
All right. And okay, then might suggest maintenance phase for 8 to 12 weeks.
To start. Be like, hey, this is what we're going to do to start. And then we'll reevaluate based on results and stuff.
And of course, and after this, how do you evaluate? So what you consider perhaps to go back again to the weight loss, or maybe keep it even further on the muscle mass. So that means go even higher with the calorie intake.
Yep.
How do you proceed mainly on the, I know each person is a person, each case is a case, but how do you proceed like in general?
Yep. So say I set out for this specific avatar, 8 to 12 weeks. All right, let's check in. Let's see how things are going. Like, how do you feel? How have your results been? Is biofeedback back on track? If it's not, then again, I think it's a sign that you need to continue to stay in this phase right off the bat. But say they're feeling good. then I throw the ball in their court of here's what we can do. If you're ready to go back to fat loss phase, you know what's the downsides of a fat loss phase, right? You're going to be a little bit hungrier. You're going to have less flexibility. Give them lay it out of what the fat loss phase is going to be like. And then just be like, it's up to you. Do you want to go back to that and we push it? Or do you want to continue to have a little bit more flexibility? We continue to build your habits, build your metabolism, build some muscle up, and then we punt this for down the line. Like those would be the things I would look at in that situation there. And let's say they decide they want to stay and they don't want to go back to fat loss yet, then I think, again, you do have a couple options. And I think you have this option throughout the entire time of these 8 to 12 weeks. See where their body weight's going. You may find that, again, you increase calories and maybe they have the first week or two, it's a little messy, weight comes up, but then it stabilizes. And then now it's like starting to trend back down again. Then you have that option of, hey, we can milk this out. You might be in a small deficit for a period of time. We're not getting the most out of the phase that we're talking about. So now we can potentially increase your calories a little bit more. And that's where I'm looking at their body weight to see, right? If you find because I've seen this happen where somebody's in fat loss, we increase their calories, it's a little messy, it comes up, and then all of a sudden their weight comes back down and now it's starting to trend back down. And then I'm checking in with them and they're like, I'm hungrier again. I'm having these issues. I'm like, you're probably back into the body compensated upwards. Now you're back in a small deficit. So now we can increase your calories a little bit at that point, right? So that's the thing that I would be going off of if I'm going to increase calories. But let's say somebody maintains their weight, it's maintaining pretty stable. You could still be like, hey, so we have an option here. Your weight's maintaining, you're feeling good. We talked about potentially trying to get your calories as high as possible. I think this is a good time to push your calories up another 100 calories and see what happens here at this point, right? Because that's a good spot for someone to be, because now it's, hey, we can continue to build your calories up. Now, at some point, you're going to run out of increases, but finding that range for them could end up being a lot higher. Does that make sense what I'm saying there in that situation?
Yeah, it does. I just want to touch and figure out a bit like the general guidelines in terms of body composition improvements. And okay, there is like a maximum, minimum period of training phase, or there is a minimum, maximum period for a cutting phase, a bit like a bodybuilding style. Because I remember when I was doing bodybuilding, I was doing like three months of cutting, and then the rest of the year I was doing only like bulking. So I don't know if I know this is something which I cannot do for each of my clients. So just try to make this kind of thing a bit more approachable, a bit more flexible for something like a random person who's not proper bodybuilder himself. So just for me to have an idea, how do you work with your clients? So basically, okay, you drop the calories, so you be in a caloric deficit for a while, and then you deficit that you maintain for a while, like for 8 to 12 weeks, and then afterwards, what do? You continue bulking, or then you just up back to the deficit again? So,
well, it depends on the person, right? So if they're in a spot where they want to keep building muscle, and I look at them from a body composition perspective and they're on the leaner side, then I'm going to be more likely to keep them at maintenance or a small surplus. Now, I wouldn't put somebody in a surplus if they're at where this guy's at, right? Like I wouldn't purposely gain weight. Like I wouldn't be forcing weight gain with him. I'm more so focused on just getting him to fuel enough and be at maintenance calories. Now, in saying that, with him getting enough fuel, being better at really focused on building muscle over time, you may see his scale weight come up a little bit. I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is for him seeing consistent weight increases week over week from the trends. To me, that tells me his calories are probably a bit too high somewhere along the lines there.
Okay. Even that he's gaining much more muscles than fat.
The quicker the weight gain is, the more likely there's going to be some fat involved in that process.
Sure.
And so in that case, that's where I'm just like, hey, with where you're at, like I would look at your adherence. We can tighten some things up. Yes, you're building some muscle, but we also like at that point that he doesn't need to be gaining. He doesn't need to be in a surplus to build muscle. Like he just needs to be feeling enough in good muscle building protocols, and he should build plenty of muscle, because you really don't want that guy gaining body fat at that point.
Yeah.
Because then that's more body fat he has to lose later from a metabolic health standpoint. It's not great. But if he does end up gaining a little bit extra, you can always reframe it as this isn't the worst thing in the world, but we should probably tighten things up a little bit because for all those reasons on there. But always kind of reframing it as, hey, this isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not like you're going backwards, because he would be building some muscle in that process. It's just he's just adding a little bit more fat than he would need to in that spot.
Yeah.
But it just really depends on where the person's at and what they're ready to do and what they're willing to do. So this guy, again, I would not push weight gain. I'm not talking weight gain in the short term right off the bat, but once he gets to a certain weight and things stabilize, I'm trying to milk out that weight range as long as possible, right? Let's stay in this weight range, make sure you're feeling good, and we're not seeing any trends up or down in terms of your scale weight over multiple weeks, right?
Yeah.
With him.
So right now in terms of body weight, he's around 80, he's a bit more than 80 kilos. And
So his body weight range that I would probably try and keep him around would be like 80 to 85 kilograms, right?
yeah, okay,
Try
yeah.
and milk that weight range out as long as possible. And if you just within that range, if you see it slowly trend up over 3, 4, 5, 6 months, he's probably fine. But if you start to see him trend up and then he gets to 85, that's where I'm now starting to be like, okay, we need to probably pull back or go back to a fat loss phase.
Okay.
Give or take a few pounds because, or a few kilograms because everyone's body is going to settle a little bit differently. Some people hold on to a little bit more water, et cetera. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Now, if it was you, if I was working with you and we were here in the spot with your current body composition, you say we got you super shredded for whatever, you got shredded, you're closer to 10% body fat now. For you, you wouldn't be a 8 to 12 week, hey, let's reevaluate. You're going to be like, hey, you're going to be in a building phase for 6+ months at this point. Unless you had a bodybuilding show, then it would be like, okay, then obviously you would have to continue to get leaner. Then it would maybe be a 4 or 8 week diet break. But you don't have that external goal and you probably don't want to get that lean. So it'd be like, hey, we're going to keep pushing. Like you would be someone that I would be in this phase a little bit longer versus coming back to a fat loss phase. Whereas this guy, the client you brought up, because his body fat is around 20-ish, he can come back to a fat loss phase a lot sooner, essentially.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay, so it's a good approach. I would try this maintenance phase for this next 8 to 12 weeks, see how it goes, and that most probably goes back to fat loss afterwards.
Be careful with how you phrase it, though. Don't necessarily phrase it as a maintenance phase. Phrase it as like a building phase. Phrase it as like some phase that is showing that it's productive, because it is productive. And I think how you phrase it really does impact how people go about the phase, right? If you do phrase it as, hey, we're just maintaining, then they show like that's how the client shows up.
It looks
like
flat.
Then they just don't put as much into this phase as they could. And ultimately, man, like at the end of the day, if you can get your clients to nail this phase, that's going to be the thing that's going to separate you from most coaches, because you're going to teach them how to not only lose weight, but then also how do you keep it off, but also how do you build muscle? And that's probably where most people go wrong, right? Like they cut, lose muscle, then they don't have a game plan because they're not in a fat loss phase, and they don't gain any muscle, they just gain fat, and then they just end up being in the same perpetual cycle, right? So I guess my takeaway for you would be reframe this phase as like hey, this is a part of the process, this is moving us forward, and we are going forward in this phase, even though it's a little bit different than just fat loss. Kind of get your mind away from bulk and cut and more like deficit phases, and then closer to maintenance calories phases versus the like bulking, because the only people that really need to have a surplus and purposely gain weight are going to be people that are super lean. They're like closer to 10% body fat. Those are the only people that would need to purposely gain weight in the process in this phase.
Okay, good. Yeah, makes sense.
Because stored body fat is stored energy, right? So it's like that you can use that to your advantage here. So it's a lot of people don't think of body fat that way, but it is essentially stored calories. So in that state, it's like you don't need a calorie surplus. I've just seen too many people like either be like, hey, I either need to cut or bulk. And so then they cut, and then they're like not where they want to be. And then they think they need to gain a bunch of weight or push a bunch of calories. And then they just gain a bunch of fat. And then it's like you're just losing the same 5-10 pounds over and over again, and potentially your body comps getting worse over time.
Okay. And just to conclude, in general with your clients, how long is the maximum you stay in the weight loss phase with your clients in terms of timing? 6 months or even a year?
I'm bringing it back to what I said earlier, where what's the rate of loss? If somebody is at this super slow rate of loss and it's, hey, you've been working with them for 6 to 12 months and they've lost 2 kilograms, obviously you need to look at, okay, why is that happening? But yeah, they've been in a fat loss phase, but it's like they're from a physiological standpoint, they haven't been in a fat loss phase. So it's like you can milk that out, right? So if the slower it is, the longer you can be in a fat loss phase. The quicker somebody's losing, the quicker it's going to be. I would say on average, though, most clients, I would say that's like you said there, that 6-ish, 3 to 6 this much month kind of range is where I like to be. Anything longer than that, it's like we either need to reconsider our adherence, or they do just need a break from fat loss, right? At that point. So around that, but I've had people that have gone longer than that too, though. And that's where I come back to biofeedback and rate of loss as being the most important things there.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I had in mind. So every 3 months to reevaluate, consider if should continue or should change the approach, should change the strategy. And okay, makes sense.
And always come back. I think the most underrated thing is biofeedback. How does a client feel? Because if they're feeling good, we don't need to make a change. You're feeling good. That's all I can ask for in this phase.
Yeah, but I also have a kind of issue with that, because sometimes I see the client is not losing weight at all, and constantly in the biofeedback, he say that they are hungry, they feel hungry. But I say, man, if you're not in deficit, how can you still feel hungry? Or they have cravings, I mean,
And
Those kind
well,
of things have to deal with.
at that point, if that was something that I was like, somebody said to me, like, I'm hungry, but then they're not losing weight, then I'm looking at what's your meal timing, where's your protein at? Can we adjust some things from that perspective? Because I think in that state, if they are hungry, it could be a meal timing thing in terms of, hey, can we set that up a little bit better? Is it a food quality thing? Do we need to improve their food quality? Do we need to maybe get a little bit more protein in? Do we need to get maybe a little bit more fiber in overall, like see where they're at? But then also look at sleep, see if there's anything off on that. Because if sleep's off, you're definitely going to be, you could be hungrier despite eating plenty of calories. And stress too. Stress is another big thing for our clients that we need to look at, where if that's high, like for some people, when stress is high, they eat more calorie dense foods, and then and then you have more calorie dense foods, and then that's going to lead to more food. And then the other kind of common thing that I see is these people that are trying to lose weight, they tend to like try and do a lot of training or super hard training. And then they try to eat low calorie with that. And so then they do get super hungry. And then what happens when they get super hungry?
They compensate with food, yeah.
They overeat, and maybe they don't feel like they're overeating, but you're typically eating more calorie dense, tasty foods. And when you're in that state, it's just super hard to moderate those types of foods there. So I would say in that situation, if somebody is not losing weight and hungry, it's self-inflicted hunger. And that's where you need to go in and look at some of those ins and outs of food log, meal timing, etc. with that.
Okay, good. All right, but this is a subject for another call, I mean, because it's also another people who are not losing weight, clients who are not losing weight.
Oh, it's frustrating. Yeah, no. Usually they're eating more calories than they think, but it's, you can't just say that.
For sure. Yeah, like, for sure. It's always like that. But yeah, I mean, of course, there is also stress involved. People would, but it's impossible for us as a coach to fix every single aspect of their lives, because we're just coaches. I mean, we're not musicians, so
not therapists either.
Yeah, exactly. Either it's something which I have to,
as much as people think we are.
Yeah, and I have to, something that I have to say to my clients. They sometimes take me as their private therapist. And I said, man, I'm not that. I don't have the skills for that. If you need a therapy, I can guide you for that, but don't expect me to be a therapy. I cannot do that. It's not my skills of level. Anyway, I acknowledge. But yeah, thank you very much. That was super helpful. I will be able to implement all these strategies for this client in general. And I'm pretty sure now most of my clients, they are, which I'm working since a while, I'm pretty sure now they start to go to a building phase. So those tips will be very helpful to organize the next.
And I have a ton of resources on building phases and what it looks like and stuff. If you have anything you want on that, like, I'm more than happy to send some stuff over on it. If you have any specific questions or you.
Yeah, I'd love to ask about that. If you have any sources, even in terms of books or researches and things like that, would be great. I would love to. I know you have your podcast, so definitely have to take a look on your. But I know the thing is that your podcast has been for that very long, so there is so many episodes. I don't know exactly how to start with.
Yeah, I know. I do have a lot now at this point, so it's hard to know which ones. So let me find some building phase specific ones that I can send over for you to check out. So
that would be great.
Sound good?
Perfect.
Cool, man.
Thank you. So I think we have a call next week, right? I'm not sure. Oh no, in 2 weeks' time. I think we change it, so we are cool.
Yep, I think 2 weeks. Yep.
Perfect.
Yep, the 14th. Cool, man. All right, Bruno. Have a good night.
Okay, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Yep. See you. Bye.
Bye.